Welcome to Foundations with Larisa Hovannisian, an unfiltered podcast where I explore the foundational principles of creators, entrepreneurs, scientists, public figures, and all around awesome people who make things happen. Welcome back to Foundations with Larisa Hovannisian. My guest today is Aren Deyirmenjian, country representative for Armenian Missionary Association of America and a seasoned professional in entrepreneurship, social impact, and community development. Aren has long been a thoughtful voice in shaping how return, belonging, and impact are approached in Armenia. In his current role at AMAA, he's leading initiatives that center long-term impact and people-first solutions. In today's episode, we explore the foundations of Aren's values-driven leadership, the emotional landscape of returning to build, and what it truly means to serve, quietly, intentionally, and for the long haul. Aren, thanks so much for coming onto this podcast with me. I love to talk to people who have done amazing things in their lives, and you're one of those people who in my view, is just someone who decides to do something and actually does it. And I really admire that about you. And you're also not from here. You're not from Armenia. Mm-hmm. You were born and raised, in the diaspora. So before you began to wear all these hats of entrepreneur, social impact leader, nonprofit leader, strategist, where were you and how did you get to where you are today?
Thanks for having me. And it's a crazy journey. It's been 6 years already, and I feel like if I think about the days, it's a long time. But if you think about the years, it's been flying crazy. I was a different person, I think, before I came here. Beirut shaped me in different ways. I was much more Lebanese and Armenian in different ways, even though I was involved in many Armenian communities, different initiatives towards different institutions that were Armenian, but mentality-wise, culture-wise. And I do still, embody a lot of that, but it's been a nice mixture ever since I got entangled with everything here. It's been this crazy journey, as I mentioned. It's been wonderful. It's been very. I got to know a lot about myself,
So you've been here for some of the hardest years of Armenia, right?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if that's true or not, because it's been always hard.
That's also true.
But ever since I came with the COVID happening, the 2020 war, and then the exile in 2023, was hard navigating through all that and the adaptation period, the whole culture shock, all that.
So where are you now? Are you Armenian Lebanese or Lebanese Armenian?
Tough question. Would say Armenian took precedence now, and it's more Armenian Lebanese. Mm-hmm. People who look at me from the outside still say you are still very Lebanese. The stuff you do are Lebanese. Like your office, when I come into your office, a friend of mine was saying, it feels like there's this touch that you brought with you, and sometimes you're in something too long, you forget that was this something I brought from my past, or is it just who I am right now? So you keep seeing yourself changing in all this, but
what is the Lebanese touch?
I think being on being a coastal city shapes how you think. As absurd as that sounds, you think that it wouldn't affect who you are, but it does. I mean, the whole being open in different ways, not even even geographically, with the sea and with the mindset and the Western values that were more predominant over there. I think that was I think it played a role in shaping a lot of people I know as well who are here right now. And that part of being Lebanese is more like the way you think, the way you approach things. There's a stark difference between how people in Armenia compare to that. It's not like good or bad. It's just a different way of approaching things.
What was like your biggest culture shock when you first moved to Armenia?
I think the mindset, things we talked about. I mean, again, it's like thinking you're coming to your homeland means you're going to be with your people. And then the biggest shock for me was I'm Armenian and this is also Armenian. How does it, kind
How
of...
is that possible?
How is that possible? How does it fit together? And really, I mean, if sometimes when I first came here, I felt more comfortable and more at home speaking to a foreigner than a local. Like, let's say I met someone on the street from the U.S. or a European guy, and I just having a conversation like this in English, and just felt more at home at that moment than when I was, at first speaking with locals. But changes at time. But yeah, the first shock was that.
Have you seen the reverse happen when you go back to Lebanon now?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's like...
You're like, in Armenia, we do it this way.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I'm sure we're gonna talk about all the positive things as well, like how this place has made me, more driven and more, just excited about doing more stuff, more initiatives. And in that way, when I go back right now in Beirut and with the things happening in Beirut, I feel like people are at a different pace. I cannot connect to them very well anymore. I feel like, as much as people think Armenia is, just sunken into different problems and all we talk about is problems, maybe the communities that I'm in, I feel people are so driven. Like, you'll be one of them, and like a lot of people like you are around me. They're just so motivating seeing everyone in this kind of, we're on a track field all together. And that's one of the things I fail to notice when I go back to home.
I think in essence, you're a builder. You see a problem and you create a solution, and then you build it out in different spheres and different industries. I think Armenia is that place where if you love identifying challenges and creating solutions and you like to build something from scratch, it's like the best place to be because there's so much to do.
Yeah.
Just anywhere you look, you point your finger, there's something that can be done in that space.
That was kind of a turning point. Growing up in your early 20s, you have these dumb ideas that you should be working and living in places like Silicon Valley or Singapore, and being in these shiny places, being in these areas where you feel like you're accomplished. But in Armenia, you're kind of expected to do miracles from a box of scraps. But once you do one, it's so rewarding, and you want to do more. And at that point, you think, okay, let's drop the whole, fantasy about where I want to live, and actually how are the things you're doing making you feel, and how does that also relate to a place that I'm ancestrally related to? I mean, you're kind of contributing to something that goes back centuries, and in that sense, I got to a point where I can do so much here than I can do anywhere else. And it's that idea of do you wanna be pushing the train, or do you want to be jumping on the running train? And in that sense, it just clicked for me, and I decided to stay.
And so, I mean, I think you're just entrepreneurial in essence, but then what I also heard you say was, this is my homeland. And I wonder where that comes from, because a lot of diasporans that I know don't see Armenia as their homeland, or haven't, or weren't raised to see it as their homeland.
I was raised in that way. I'm grateful to my family and to the institutions that educated me. be it school, church, communities. There was a strong sense of community. I think that's more prevalent in some diasporan communities than others. I'm thankful that mine was in that way, but then you have to ask yourself the tough questions when you get here, because you are going to be faced with the question, is it really the homeland? Is it really, I mean, the stories that we were told, you know, it is challenging to grasp that idea and find your own explanation to why is it a homeland or not.
Why do you think that is? I mean, is it just because, you know, this part of Armenia was under Soviet rule and was inaccessible?
I think that was part of it. I mean, what do you think? How did you feel about it when you came here?
I actually didn't know that this problem existed. It wasn't until I started communicating with different diasporan groups because of Teach for Armenia that I realized that there is fundamentally, I mean, we have a lot of disagreements between each other as a people, but there isn't even a fundamental understanding of the fact that the Republic of Armenia is our home, you know, is the only homeland we have at this point. You know, at that time I was also talking about Artsakh as our home and still believe it to be that. But, you know, you have this sovereign land that has independence that is recognized by the whole world except for a couple of countries like Pakistan for some weird reason. But, you know, I just didn't realize that there was this fragmentation. And so when I've said this before on the podcast, but like when I went with my first presentation to LA, and I won't mention the group I met with, a very influential diaspora group. And I started my whole pitch with, you know, return to the homeland, build the homeland, teach in the homeland. And I just had these like blank stares throughout the whole thing. And then after, when I was done, the first question that was asked was, what do you mean homeland when you say it that way? And so that was a shocker to me.
Maybe because you had the chance to visit Armenia over the summers.
Yeah, I mean,
would that have helped, you think, with you?
Totally. Yeah. Totally. But I was raised outside of like the standard diasporan situation. My mom is Armenian. My dad's not Armenian. You know, she grew up in Soviet Armenia. My dad was this Irish American guy from Wisconsin, and I grew up between the U.S. and then Russia in my formative years, actually. And my mom brought us to Armenia every summer. But, you know, in Russia, it's a different kind of diaspora. You know, it's not like, because so much of the Russian diaspora tries to assimilate because they have to, because, you know, your identity isn't supported. You can't have a school. You know, you can't, we have a church, but it's very controlled, and it's not just for Armenians, any minority groups, there's a lot of control around that. Whereas in countries like Lebanon, the US, France, and other places where we have large diasporas, it's promoted. Your cultural heritage is important, and it's promoted, and it's valued, and it makes you unique. In Russia, it's suppressed. It's, you know, you're ridiculed for it. You're called different derogatory terms for it very often. And when I was growing up there, I mean, it was very difficult to be a child, to witness such extreme racism and insecurity, physical sometimes insecurity, just because you look different or you look dark or however, you know, they would call us. So it's a very different psychological state, I think. I think it's a very dangerous situation because the largest diaspora actually is in Russia. And so I think that we have a real risk of complete assimilation and loss of Armenian identity throughout the process. It's been happening for many, many years, but it's we're not on the right track there, I think.
I think what you mentioned about the Soviet era having that effect of, you know, allowing the Western diasporans, let's say, besides Russia, feel a bit foreign about the place. And that's not the case with Russia, as you said, because they were in the same Soviet Union. So yeah, in that sense, yeah, when you get here and you haven't visited over summers, let's say it hasn't been a regular place that you're familiarized with your whole life, it does get to a point where you do question that. But a lot of people stop there. A lot of people I know, I've heard of, have come and experienced all that and be like, this is not my place, and just left. And I was also, I was tempted to leave, give up. But I think that's a very important point where you push through. And not everything you see and you don't like, you have to change. I mean, you mentioned that I've been in endeavors where, affecting change, affecting institutionalized change, different initiatives, this, that. But it was very important for me to realize, where do you stop? Where do you actually, even the stuff that you don't like, you have to go to a place where you say, even the things I don't understand, they've been in place for like decades, if not more. Who am I to judge if this is right or wrong? And then a lot of those things, it was a very important, learning curve for me to start appreciating the stuff that I don't agree with, or the stuff that don't make me feel very familiar. And at that point, I think things got a lot easier, and I started loving the place for what it is, not for what I want it to be. A lot of diasporans fall into this trap.
Yeah.
Perhaps a lot of maybe US based as well, I've noticed.
Well, it's like dating. It's like you ultimately have your expectations, and then, usually people don't meet your expectations because it's unfair. Like, you have a set of things and they come with a completely different thing. So I think what you're saying really resonates with me, because I think all of us have been through this curve. But this is like real long-term love. Yeah. Like, this is you accepting things and having things that you understand are just part of it and part of the deal, and still showing up for this country, this place you love.
And it's a daily.
Every day, choosing your partner every day, despite the differences.
This is turning to a relationship podcast.
But it's similar.
It is.
I think.
I think the idea is, and it's you have to choose to be that way every day. Because if you let it go, it takes over you. You're like, oh, I'm just sick of this. I'm sick of that, and this doesn't work for me. It's a long journey, as you said.
And you have done, incredible work through AMAA and your other initiatives. And my assumption is that, just like what I've seen through Teach for Armenia, the change part that you refer to happens sometimes so quickly that it becomes almost like addictive. You're like, okay, this was a problem. This was really hard. We created a solution. We figured it out. Yeah. And now it's not just like a short-term solution, but things are beginning to operate in a different way, and will be so for the long term. Can you talk through maybe some of these things that you've seen, that like these shifts that you've been part of or that you've enabled, that have really kept you loving Armenia during, a difficult time for you personally, as someone who's new to the country, and also given everything that Armenia has lived through in recent years?
With AMA, I think things were very challenging from the beginning, because the organization was at a point where we had to decide whether we're keeping things as we are, and we were doing a lot of good at that point too. Right. But the question of, were we relevant to what was going on around us, that was something that came up. and I was entrusted with something that I think was bigger than myself, but it really challenged me. And you have different people coming to you saying different things. Don't bother. It's going to be very hard. It's impossible. But I think there's this idea from one of the writers that I really appreciate. It's this idea of productizing yourself. Like authenticity always beats competition or adversity, and I had to make a choice where I had to do something that I believed in myself, and that also was very coherent at the same time with the values of the organization. So I was very careful about how I do that, productizing yourself, how I put my touch into all of this, and at the same time balance how the mission of the organization, which is more than 100 years old, doesn't shift. So there was this challenge of staying very relevant or becoming relevant to where Armenia was going, where the other organizations around us were going. And in that sense, I think we worked very hard to balance things out between our projects and how we insert the mission that was at its core into these new looking projects, which were more, I think in line with where the country was going. Because basically when AMA was founded here, it was in the early 90s. And
in response to all
yeah,
the
the
stuff that was
earthquake
happening,
and,
it was a
everything.
relief.
Yeah.
There was a lot of it was relief
Exactly.
oriented. Yeah.
And at that time, I think there was nothing else to do, basically.
Right.
So at that time, AMA was, providing basically food and just people for people to survive, and it was amazing at that point. But maybe we carried that along too far when, in 2020, we were doing some of the same stuff. And I thought that was also misleading to our donor bases, to the diaspora, to everyone who's not here, thinking Armenia is still that primitive, poverty-stricken place. And I thought a shift had to happen in their minds as well. How we kind of go to them saying, okay, yeah, we still do have a lot of issues in Armenia, but we're also growing. We're also developing. We're also, if we don't think differently about Armenia is going to stay the same way.
If you want different outcomes, you should do different actions.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think for me, I mean, as an observer, I've seen the shift. I think a lot of what has happened under your leadership is new initiatives, forward thinking. A lot of it is nation building, in ways that, as you said, feel authentic to AMAA and the core mission that the organization has. What are some of the things that AMAA is really looking to invest in and help build up in Armenia?
We took a look at this a couple of years ago. We felt that we were doing a lot of things at the same time. A lot of them were good, but it was kind of all over the place with pop-ups, let's say, and here and there, all, serving to a good cause, of course. But there was no, convergence into this one clear idea, one clear mission that, we wanted to do this or that. So we took a look at our history, actually, and it was fascinating to see how in our history, over maybe more than 150 years, starting from Bolis all the way over to the West, this institution was involved with more than 300 educational initiatives. From Bolis to all these countries in the West, starting with, schools, orphanages, seminaries. And And how does that, kind of put responsibility on us to also do something similar? Because in Beirut, where I grew up, and in Syria and these countries where, there was a longer history before AMA came to Armenia, we were very much known with our schools. And I myself went to one of the schools that was AMAA's. And I had a lot of friends who were not from these communities. I mean, they came from all Armenian communities to these schools because they knew they were quality schools, and there was a very good reputation. The same image was not being reflected in Armenia because we were doing all these humanitarian, social, relief, and education was like a small part of it. And then we came together, we thought, if we're going to think about the future, the history is like our biggest, biggest place to learn from. And we put a vision saying we want to converge our projects under the umbrella of a school, making it the cluster school model. Like our social centers that were very standalone would come in and be part of the school. The clinics that we had would also be part of the school, something called school-based health centers, and different scholarship and sponsorship programs also doing the same. So school becoming this community center where things are, in a synergy together, and you're looking at things holistically, how to bring up a new generation, not just academically, and also putting their values that AMA believes in, like the spiritual content that we very much stress on. So in this way, we're doing that right now. And in the current school that we have, we're holding a pilot where the clinic is moving there very soon. The social center already did, by the way. Starting September, it's already there. Doing a lot of other stuff too. So trying it out where we already have one, and then replicating that into the region. So we want to have 5 in 25 years.
That's great. That's great. That makes a lot of sense to me. And I think one thing that I've felt like a lot of nonprofits haven't prioritized in Armenia for various objective also reasons and subjective reasons was collaboration with the government. And I think to your point, ultimately, I mean, I'm such an evangelist of this idea, but I think the only way systemically things can happen is if there is an openness and a desire to directly impact what's also happening in the educational system. And I think by building these examples of innovation and ways in which things can be different, I think that can really have a spillover effect to how the country begins to operate, other schools begin to operate. One thing that I love about the school that AMA has, the Hovannisian school in Yerevan, is that it's always been free of charge for kids. And so effectively it's a public school for children, and it's open to kids. And I know you built in an area where there's a number of underserved families, and I think that has been such a important step and such an important example, proving that not only an organization like AMAA can create something that could set a new standard educationally in Armenia, but it's also available and open,
accessible,
and it's accessible, yes, and that any child who's given the right kind of access and opportunity to learn, whether they're, from one place of the country or the other, from the capital or somewhere else, from a wealthy family or not a wealthy family, every child has the right to have this opportunity and can be really great and has a lot of potential to be
private school education, if you think about it, and I know you know a lot about this in your different experiences with Teach for Armenia. In Armenia, it's this elite class exclusivity where if you don't have the money you're kind of not allowed to pursue any of that. And thankfully to you and people like you who are working on the public sector, that's kind of changing. But also, in our way, we're trying to make private school education accessible, because
Exactly.
it doesn't have to be that way always. I mean, yeah, you do have the good quality schools here that parents who are from a well income background would have that ease of mind that sometimes we do not fully trust yet the government's program for our public schools. That's understandable, but doesn't mean if you cannot afford that, then you don't have an alternative. So in our case, it's kind of a mixture between public and private. It's this kind of a private school education, but it's open to the public. So we're really proud of that, and whatever we're going to do next is also going to be based on the same model. It costs us a lot of resources to do that, because you need to create a system where it's clearly funded every year. The operating costs, you have no income basically from tuitions.
Right.
But thankfully, thanks to our donor base, or how the system is set up with our endowments,
You're able to do that.
we're able to do that. It's not easy, trust me. Like covering that many costs at a school, so many staff members, so many costs that
Of course. Yeah.
and there's basically no income from tuitions, and we don't want to change that at all. But yeah, I think it is a mantle that you want to carry. I mean, it is something that makes sense if you really find the way.
Yeah. We're in something called the 405 Educational Alliance that we co-founded together. TFA, AMAA, TUMO, FAST Foundation, the Armenian Educational Foundation, and AGBU. And I think it's, I've been interviewing people who represent these organizations, and we're all in the education space. We're all tackling issues from different angles that we see in the education system in Armenia. And I think one thing that stands out to me with 405, well, two things. One is that we were able to co-create an educational alliance together. Organizations that might come from different perspectives, different ideologies, but who all believe in the same thing. And the other thing that I think sets us apart is that we have this immense desire to not duplicate efforts and to really synergize our work together and collaborate with the state. Even if it's, a
long shot.
even though it's hard and there's a lot of things that we need to think about, but there's this desire to understand, what is the government doing? What is the strategy to provide feedback on the things that are happening, that are not happening, that we think that should be happening. The siloing of the private philanthropic sector and the government, in my view, in recent years has been shrinking, which I believe to be a very good thing. A lot of the nonprofits who are in our alliance are private foundations, and their programs, many of them run outside of the system technically, but the know-how and the spillover and the content is something that's seeping into the system, which I think is great. And so do you see something similar happening in other spheres? Because AMAA also has healthcare and so many other kind of chunks and pillars that comprise, one ecosystem that AMAA runs. But do you see something similar like that happening in other sectors or no?
I think what we did with 405 was, I might even call it the first. People may excuse my, negligence if it's not, but I would want to think it was a first in the sense that so many organizations putting egos aside and coming together and actually co-creating, that's for me, it's itself is a big thing. Of course, you're not stopping there, but I think it took a lot to get to that point, and I think our generation of thinkers who do who are starting to believe that this is the way forward, and days are over where we thought the whole thing is a competition. I mean, come on, we're a country that most people over the world wouldn't be able to point it out on a map.
Yes.
And are we really competing just to show off? I mean, yeah, I mean, I get the whole, idea where if people do stuff here and they're proud about it and they want to feel exclusive about it, and there's nothing wrong about it, maybe. But, seeing the whole situation surrounding our country, seeing how, we're faced with challenges, and, more than just challenges, actually, we're at, I think at some point we were at at a point where it was an existential crisis. I say were because I believe things are a bit better right now. I don't want to jinx it, but I do think that it's a place maybe we're turning a corner. But yeah, I think understanding all that, and leaders of our generation were able to put all that into the past and started to see, okay, this is something that has to be done. I don't know if this is very common in other spheres. I am actually very interested to know. I mean, tech seems to be, right, a place where people are more forward thinking and are collaborative.
Well, there's a big there's two big unions that are,
I mean, sometimes there are unions and there's not the right mindset.
Yeah. I think in the private sector it's more common. In the philanthropy sector, like nonprofit sector, I've seen, to your point, like a lot of adversity.
Yeah.
Even in times of war.
Yeah.
Which really broke my heart, because...
Like, who's helping more?
Yeah, because, like, if we're not able to come together and really put our differences aside and not worry about joining forces because this donor might then prefer you versus the other organization,
And this, maybe our, previous question that you asked comes in play here when, the differences between diasporans and local Armenians and the whole cultural stuff. Do you think that's also affecting these adversities and the competition and the different ways that we cannot come together?
I think so. That's part of it. I think the other thing is, we do have scarce resources, and we ultimately go to the same people, as nonprofits, and we try to get financing for our different initiatives, which is cutthroat and complicated, and so I think people are very nervous about that, and they want to look like they're the better organization. They're they have the smaller OPEX, they have no team in place and just the board operate, all these different things, which I could go on and on about as something that I think is super archaic and needs to change. But I think a lot of the fragmentation, the not wanting to work together, comes from fear, and comes from not seeing ultimately the why of what we do.
That's big.
It is big. Yeah, it is big. And it's sad because instead of I hate this word because it's so overused, but instead of like synergizing, we're actually diluting resources. And if someone is, already doing something, and then you look at it and then you say, okay, I'll do the same thing. Okay, like do it, but like those resources could go to build something new, right? Which is much needed because, as I said, there's so many different.
I think in 4 or 5 in that 4 or 5 in that sense is great, and I think in the way where if we come to a point, I mean it's still fresh new, but if we come to a point where we're saying, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing thing that not those guys are not doing.
Right.
And if we're synergizing in that sense, I think there's a real window there where, because there are the resources, there's the the human resources that each organization has, the donor bases that each organization has, and then the stuff you said is totally true. Like
another thing that I noticed, and it really irked me, was during times of crisis, 2020 war, 2022 invasion into Armenia, 2023 exodus. These, bless them, I love the diasporans, but they just all of a sudden pop out these nonprofits overnight and Venmo me this, Venmo me that. It's again diluting scarce resources for organizations that are already on the ground, are way larger, have way more impact and reach, knowledge and connections. And listen, like TFA was a tiny organization when we started, but we've been around for 10 plus years. We didn't pop up and then pop out. We've been we've been here. AMAA, obviously, like we can't even compare the trajectories because AMAA is an institution that's been around for so many years. But other longstanding, I think, newer foundations and organizations are really, I think it's ultimately detrimental. Yeah. And so, I it's fine. Like everyone is free to do what they want to do. But I think that also then affects how the diaspora understands what the need is in Armenia, perceives what kind of support is needed, and trusts these smaller initiatives that I think are created for the best of intentions. But as long as you're doing the work when there is a moment of crisis and when there is not a moment of crisis, that's really the testament to me. And so, what I would see often is people sending boxes, tons of diapers, for example, and formula.
And then they end up in a storage because
there's customs issues
or maybe no one needs it.
No one needs it. That might be that might be one thing.
That's not
the other thing is, as you said, we're not this like poverty-stricken. Like we have diapers and formula, and there are people running businesses selling those things here. Yeah. Thankfully, Armenia is not in a blockade. So,
why do you think people are, because I see the people that you're talking about, and I really don't want to bust their bubble at some point. I feel how, they're so passionate about what they're about to do, but is it, are they misinformed? Or is it wanting to do the things themselves? I
think it's both. Probably. I think it's both. I think it's the wrong perception of what's actually happening in Armenia. Not because they're bad people or they don't want to do good things, but it's because they don't have the context. They don't have the information, and I think they're being fed whatever they're reading from whatever media resources.
That's a major issue.
Which is a major issue, and making their own. I also think that a lot of people who are involved in philanthropy, not to be an ageist, are older. They're older. And I think their way of operating philanthropic initiatives in Armenia worked 30 years ago, does not work now. So often, like I've heard people say, why do you have such a big team? Oh my God, your operational expenses are through the roof. We do everything at the board. We only have one person in Armenia.
And you're barely making it with this team.
Yeah, and probably. I'm barely making it with this team. I mean, we're We're under 30 people now, and we work with 60,000 kids, and we have multiple initiatives, and we should be way larger than
How
we
do you
are
explain
now.
that?
But you can't explain it because the standard had been set all these years ago. And then you have initiatives like TFA and others who are doing things differently because best practices have evolved. Armenia is not the same country. Philanthropy is not the same. Nonprofit management isn't what it used to be before. It's, we run TFA as a social enterprise, So how do you see that from your side? Because a lot of the work that you do is with the diaspora. It's with these perceptions, these narratives. How do you deal with that? I mean, I can imagine it's very hard.
It is. You have to expect a lot of humility from the other side when you're pitching these new, for them, new looking approaches, and sometimes there are a lot of people who see that even if we're young, even if we're new, even if we're not as experienced as these groups were, from the 90s coming over here and all that. Giving the benefit of the doubt that could these people know something that I don't, because times are changing, and we're the ones who are adapting the fastest. And in those cases, I do try to keep pushing. I try not to give up. I try not to convince myself to go back and track back and stay in the
now.
Because listen, if I do that, I'm going to do a horrible job as a leader.
Yeah.
If I don't believe in what I'm doing, if it's not, as I mentioned before, something that's my character, putting my touch into something, if I don't believe in that, if I'm doing someone else's I'm just implementing someone else's idea because they think it's right, I'm going to do a horrible job. They might replace me very soon. So that's why I think I push. And I always try to stay self-critical. It's a balance. It requires a lot of, reminding yourself that, even though that you're here, you're seeing the changes, you're adapting the fastest, and you can see others doing the same, but is there something that I'm missing? Because there's always stuff that you don't see. You have your blind spots, this, that. In my head, it was always like that, and thankfully, whenever people saw how things resonated in my head and how convinced I was of the idea that I was pitching, and like, we need to do this. We need to be relevant. We need to let go of those things. And I might tell you, I didn't succeed in all of it. I succeeded in some, and I think that was a big win, considering things. But I would never, advise anyone to backtrack on something they believe in,
right,
in order to just please people and just adapt to systems that were in place for a long time.
What got you through like the burnout that you experienced? You said you almost gave up. We all have gone through burnouts, and I've had multiple. Not recently, thankfully, but in the beginning especially, it was tough. I was angry. Like, I just had so much rage. I just wanted to slap people.
Like like the stuff we're discussing right now, in terms of trying to affect change or not, or generally.
Yeah,
as
when
well.
you moved and you began to find yourself again in this new place and with this new role and the other initiatives that you're running.
I think the turning point I mentioned was really important for me. Doing a lot here, and the reward that you get personally of pushing this box from one place to the other and seeing the whole process, how you affected that change, and coming to the conclusion, at least myself, that was not going to be possible anywhere else. and it would not have the same connection that it has to me, as this is my ancestral land. So doing something to a place where you're connected to. I mean, one time I was hearing this, I think it was a folk song melody, like, and I do have a hobby in music, and but it was like when I hear Armenian melodies, it just gives me goosebumps. It touches me in a different way. Something must be there in
100%.
my DNA
Yeah.
that it does this to me.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ask world-class musicians how they rate those melodies, but to me, it is something that would really touch me. And if you just take that idea, if in the context of, okay, who says this is your ancestral land, or who says you still have a connection to that, stuff like this, you come and say, okay, there's definitely something. And then when you're doing other stuff for Armenia, you're kind of figuring out that this is somewhere I do belong to, even if current situation doesn't explicitly tell me that every single day. I am connected to this land. So when I kind of saw the whole picture from a distance, it was like, yeah, I can do much more here, and I'm connected to the place in an inexplicable way. So yeah, I think that was one of the things, to stay and not give up.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Aren, thank you so much. You touched on things that I think will be very important for our audience to hear, especially, folks who are younger, who love this country, want to build in this country, sometimes feel very frustrated by this country, which I think we all do, on and off. But as I said, it's a long-term commitment. It's a long-term marriage, and we're in it for the long haul. And I think we're all very lucky that you have chosen to be here and to bring your talents here and to really love Armenia in the most authentic way. So thank you.
Thank you.